Hello everyone, this is Shahrukh from St. Xavier Senior Secondary School, Hardoi. Again here with a new video of Class 8 Science of Chapter Force and Pressure. In this chapter, I will tell you about the force, application of force and its types. So before starting our topic, I would like to tell you that you all kindly subscribe our school channel and click bell icon for getting the notification of the channel. So now let's come to the point. What is force? First, what is force? Force is simply defined as a push or pull on an object, that is called a force. Push, what does it mean? Push and pull. Push means the force which is exerted away from the body, and the pull, the force which is exerted towards the body, that is called push or pull. So we can say that the motion which is imparted to objects is due to the action of force. Okay, now the question is, students, how force come into play? Means how the force is arrived. Simply, a force arises due to the interaction between the two objects. So how the interaction will take place? Let us consider an example. The example is, that is the block, you can say the is given, one is pushing it and one is pulling it. Okay, so there is an interaction between the object and a man, which is due to which the force arises. Another example we can take, that suppose that a man who is standing behind a stationary car, when he is standing, then there is no interaction with the car, and when the car is being pushed by that man, it means it is the interaction. When he apply when he applies a force on it, then the car will begin to move in the direction of the applied force. Without applying the force, the car cannot move. So from this it is clear that at least two objects must interact for a force to come into play. Thus, an interaction of one object with another object gives a force between two objects. This is the example of the force. Okay, now forces are applied on an object in the same direction at to one another. Okay, and if the two forces act in the opposite direction on an object, the net force acting on it is the difference between the two forces. So net force means total force. Now force has magnitude as well as direction. Magnitude means the strength of magnitude, and direction or the magnitude of the applied force changes. When magnitude will change, then its effect will also change. Now the SI unit of force, is Newton. So generally more than one force may be acting on an object, however the effect on the object is due to the net force acting on it. Okay, now the application of force, or we can say the effects of force. A force is an effort that changes the state of an object at rest or in motion. Okay, so by applying the force, if the object is at rest, then by applying the force the object may change, may move, and if the object is in motion, if we apply the force on that object, moving object, the object will come to the stop. Means it will be at stationary position. It can change an object direction and velocity. Okay, by applying the force, the direction of object can be changed and its velocity can also be changed. What does it mean? What do you mean by velocity? The displacement per unit time is known as the velocity. Now what is the displacement? Displacement is defined as the shortest distance between two objects. The shortest distance between two objects is known as the displacement. Now another application is force can also change the shape of an object. So a force can change the state of motion. The state of motion of an object is defined by its velocity, the speed with the direction. So the state of motion of an object is described by its speed and the direction of motion. The state of rest is considered to be the state of zero speed. Okay students, an object may be at rest or in motion, both are its state of motion. This is the state of motion. State of motion, a change in either the speed of an object or its direction of motion, or both. That is the change in its state of motion. Thus we can say a force may bring a change in the state of motion of an object. Now students, the types of force. Types of force, how many types of forces are there? Okay, so there are two types of force. That is the contact force. Contact means touching or contacting between two objects. Okay, so what is contact force? Contact force means the force which is exerted by between the two objects which are in contact. For example, or we can say a touch or contact is required to do most of our everyday activities like lifting, pulling, kicking, pushing. Okay, so we can see here the example, that is contact force 1, contact force 2 and mg. Okay, wall is putting between these two forces, between these two surfaces. So when the force is exerted between this wall and this surface, then the force exerted between these two will be contact force. For example, or we can say contact forces that require touch or contact to be applied are known as contact forces. For example, muscular forces, frictional forces. Now, what are muscular forces? Muscular force is caused by the action of muscles in our body. Then the force resulting due to the action of muscles is known as the muscular force. Since we can say, take the example like pushing an object or pulling an object or carrying any object. When we push the object, then the force which is exerted by our muscles, that is the muscular force. Since muscular force can be applied only when it is in contact with an object, that's why it is an example of contact force. Another example like friction. What does it mean? Friction means to oppose the motion of an object. This is the force which is responsible for changing the state of motion of an object. So it is the force of friction between the surface of the wall and the ground that brings the moving wall to rest. Okay, now we can take another example. The friction between water and the boat brings it to a stop once you stop rowing. Now students, the force of friction always acts on all the moving objects and its direction is always opposite to the direction of motion. Okay, so that's why this is the example of a contact force. I hope you all got it about the frictional force. Now, what are the non-contact force? Non-contact force, that force which do not require a contact or that have their influence without a touch, then they are called non-contact force. Or we can say, okay, example we can take. So a magnet can exert a force on another magnet without being in contact with it. Then the force exerted by a magnet is an example of non-contact force. For example, magnetic force, electrostatic force, and gravitational force. These are the example of non-contact force. Okay, students. Now, what is magnetic force? The force which is exerted by a magnet is known as magnetic force. Okay, and similarly, the force which is exerted by a magnet on a piece of iron is also a non-contact force, we can say. Thus, what is electrostatic force now? Electrostatic force or the gravitational force, these are the example of non-contact force. So, what is the gravitational force? What is the gravitational force? Gravitational force is a force, we can define it as the attractive force which a body experiences toward the center of the earth is called the force of gravity due to earth. The property of the universe, every object attracts or exerts a force on every other object. Okay, so as we all know that we can take the example like if we are having one coin in our hand. Okay, when we held this coin in our hand, it will be at rest. When it is released, yes, it begins to move downwards. Thus, it clears from this example that the state of motion of the coin undergoes a change. But this change can be happen without force acting on it? No. Thus, which is this force through which the coin begins to move downwards? As we all know that the objects or things fall toward the earth because it pulls them. This force is called the force of gravity or just gravity. It is an attractive force, and the force of gravity acts on all objects. For example, water begins to flow toward the ground as soon as we open a tap. Same example we can take, water in reverse flows downwards due to the force of gravity. So, gravity is not a property of the earth alone. Okay, as we all know that every object in the universe, whether the object is small or large, exert a force on every other object, and this force is known as the gravitational force. This force is known as the gravitational force. That's why this is called the example of gravitational force. Now another force is electrostatic force. Electrostatic force. What is electrostatic force? Simply the force of attraction or repulsion experienced by a charged body from another charged body is known as electrostatic force. It can be the force which is exerted by a charged body on another charged or uncharged body is known as electrostatic force. This force comes into play even when the bodies are not in contact. That's why it is an other example of non-contact force. Okay, so electrostatic force, now how it exert? Charged and uncharged means positive. There are two types of charges, that is positive charge and negative charge. So plus minus. Okay, as we all know that the plus plus and minus minus means the like charge attract each other, and like charges repel each other, and unlike charges attract each other. Means when the charges will be same, then they will attract, they will repel each other, and when the charges will not be same, means unlike charges will be there, then they will attract each other. So these are the examples of non-contact force, that is electrostatic force, gravitational force. I hope you all students that you all got about the force. Thank you.